How humans beat the heat. Can you believe our ancestors could survive extreme heat and even make ice in a desert reaching 40 degrees Celsius without electric fans or refrigerators? Long before electricity, people learned to work with wind, water, earth, and shade to create remarkably effective natural cooling systems. But humanity's struggle against heat began much earlier than that. Millions of years ago, the first solutions were already taking shape inside our own bodies. One of the earliest changes was walking upright on two legs. Standing tall beneath the equatorial midday sun greatly reduced the amount of the body directly exposed to intense solar radiation. It also lifted the body farther away from the scorching ground. Higher above the surface, air movement was often stronger, helping the body release heat more efficiently and conserve water. In this way, upright walking became an important advantage for our ancestors living on hot, open grasslands. Then came a strange evolutionary trade-off. Our ancestors lost most of the thick body hair carried by other apes. At first, that created a serious problem. Without fur for protection, bare skin was exposed directly to the sun, making overheating more dangerous during the hottest part of the day. Early humans may therefore have been more active around dawn and dusk, when temperatures were lower. To truly take advantage of the daytime, however, the body needed a much more powerful cooling system. That system was sweat. As body hair disappeared, humans developed an extraordinarily effective way to cool themselves with water. We have roughly 10 times the density of sweat glands found in chimpanzees, allowing large amounts of sweat to spread across the skin. As that moisture evaporates, it carries heat away from the body. Even more importantly, sweating works independently of breathing, allowing humans to run, breathe, and cool themselves at the same time during long pursuits under the hot sun. Sweat helped solve the problem of overheating, but bare skin created another danger: ultraviolet radiation. The human body adapted again, developing darker skin through increased melanin. Melanin can be thought of as a kind of natural sunscreen. It reduces damage from sunlight and helps protect valuable nutrients in the blood from being broken down by ultraviolet radiation. This allowed humans to benefit from reduced body hair while still surviving beneath intense sunlight. But if losing body hair helped us stay cool, why did humans keep thick hair on the head, and why can that hair be tightly curled? The answer may involve protecting one of our most heat-sensitive organs, the brain. Tightly curled hair does not lie flat against the scalp. Instead, it creates a layer of insulating air that reduces the amount of solar heat reaching the skull. It acts almost like a natural helmet, helping protect the brain from overheating while still allowing sweat to evaporate. By this point, the human body had developed an impressive collection of defenses against extreme heat. The fridge made from clay. Once the body had adapted, human ingenuity took over. One of the simplest cooling devices was a double clay pot system. A smaller clay pot was placed inside a larger one, and the space between them was packed with wet sand. Fruits, vegetables, or other foods were stored inside the smaller pot. There was no electricity, no motor, and no chemical refrigerant, only clay, sand, and water. Yet this remarkably simple design could function like a natural refrigerator. The secret was the wet sand. Water from the damp layer slowly passed through the porous clay of the outer pot and evaporated into the hot, dry air. As the water evaporated, it absorbed heat from the sand, the clay walls, and the inner container. Under suitable conditions, the temperature inside could drop by around 10 degrees Celsius, helping food remain fresh for longer. The principle was simple but powerful. Evaporation carried heat away from the pot, turning wet sand into a natural cooling system. But this clay refrigerator had an important weakness. If it was placed directly beneath intense sunlight, incoming solar heat could overwhelm the cooling produced by evaporation. High humidity also reduced its effectiveness because air already filled with moisture could absorb less additional water vapor. That meant the system worked best in a dry, shaded place with steady airflow. The pot itself could remain exactly the same, yet simply placing it in the wrong environment could dramatically reduce its cooling power. That is also why people covered the opening with a damp cloth instead of sealing it beneath a glass lid. Glass could trap solar heat inside, creating a greenhouse effect that warmed the food rather than cooling it. A wet cloth allowed air to continue circulating while moisture escaped through evaporation. Through capillary action, the fabric could also draw water upward, and help maintain moisture around the opening. From the human body to a simple clay pot, our ancestors learned the same fundamental lesson. Surviving extreme heat often meant working with nature rather than fighting against it. Towers that caught cool air. If the clay pot refrigerator already seems impressive, ancient Persians took natural cooling to an entirely different scale. Across the dry regions of Iran, they built tall chimney-like structures known as badgers, or wind towers, some reaching around 15 meters high. These towers were designed to capture faster, cooler air moving above the rooftops and channel it down into the rooms below. In the middle of a scorching desert, a structure made largely from earth and brick could function almost like a giant air conditioning system. But how could the air keep moving without an electric fan? Warm, stale air inside the building naturally rose and escaped through openings in the wind tower. As that hot air left, differences in air pressure helped draw cooler air into the building to replace it. The process could continue as long as the surrounding conditions supported airflow. With no motor and no moving blades, the wind tower turned natural convection and pressure differences into a steady source of ventilation. The Persians pushed the idea even further by combining wind towers with another extraordinary structure hidden beneath the desert: underground water channels called qanats. These gently sloping tunnels carried cool groundwater from higher elevations toward dry settlements far away. Ancient qanat networks eventually stretched for enormous distances across the region. In some places, cool underground water could pass beneath or near buildings, providing the foundation for an even more effective form of natural cooling. When a wind tower worked together with a qanat, the result could resemble a remarkably sophisticated natural air conditioning system. Hot desert air was drawn through underground spaces connected to the cool water below. As the air passed through this cooler, more humid environment, its temperature dropped and its moisture level increased. The cooled air could then be directed upward into the rooms above. Under favorable conditions, indoor temperatures could be around 16 degrees Celsius lower than the scorching air outside. No compressor, no electricity, just wind, water, and a deep understanding of the environment. Ice made in the desert. But the story becomes even harder to believe. Around 2,400 years ago, ancient Persians were able to preserve ice through summers that could reach 40 degrees Celsius. They built enormous cone-shaped structures known as yakhchals, with deep storage chambers extending below ground. Thick walls and the naturally cooler temperatures beneath the surface helped protect the ice from the intense desert heat. Ice produced during the colder months could then remain stored inside for use long into the summer. But how did they make ice without a freezer? Part of the answer was written across the night sky. During clear, dry winter nights, water was spread into shallow pools beside the yakhchal. The water lost heat through thermal radiation toward the cold, open sky. In effect, the clear night sky acted like a vast heat sink, allowing energy to escape from the water into the atmosphere and beyond. Under the right conditions, the water could freeze even when the surrounding air temperature remained slightly above 0 degrees Celsius. It looked like magic, but the real explanation was physics. To prevent the water from becoming too warm before nightfall, ancient engineers constructed massive shade walls, sometimes reaching around 15 meters high and running roughly east to west. This kept the pools on the northern side shaded for much of the day. The walls could also help shield the water from hot desert winds. By the time darkness arrived, the water started colder and was therefore more likely to freeze quickly during the night. The yakhchal itself also needed a highly effective protective shell. Persian builders used a special mortar known as saruj, traditionally made from materials such as sand, clay, lime, ash, fibers, and other locally available ingredients. The resulting surface was highly resistant to water and provided useful insulation. That helped slow the movement of heat into the underground storage chamber while protecting the structure from moisture created by melting ice. Saruj served as an ancient insulating layer, performing a role similar to the protective materials used in modern cold storage buildings. During the hottest months of summer, additional insulating material could be placed over parts of the earthen structure, including layers of straw. It may have made the yakhchal look like an enormous mound covered in dry grass, but the purpose was practical rather than decorative. The straw created another barrier against incoming solar heat. Combined with the deep chamber, thick walls, and insulating construction, These methods dramatically slowed the melting of the ice stored inside. And all of that effort made possible one extraordinary luxury during the blazing summer: a bowl of icy faluda. This traditional Persian dessert combined chilled or frozen ingredients with rose water and thin starch noodles, creating an intensely refreshing treat. In the burning heat of the desert, something so cold must have seemed almost impossible. Yet there was no supernatural secret behind it. The real marvel was generations of people learning how to use wind, water, earth, shade, and even the night sky to control heat. Cities hidden underground. If finding shade above ground was not enough, some ancient communities chose a far more radical solution. They moved entire settlements underground. In Cappadocia, Turkey, people carved into soft volcanic rock to create enormous subterranean cities, some capable of sheltering around 20,000 people. These complexes could extend as deep as 11 levels, with schools, churches, winemaking areas, and protected passageways connecting different spaces. Escaping the heat was no longer about finding one cool room. It meant building an entire world beneath the earth. The greatest advantage of that underground world was its temperature. The surrounding volcanic tuff acted like an enormous natural thermal regulator. While summers above could be scorching and winters bitterly cold, temperatures underground remained relatively stable at around 55 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 13 degrees Celsius. Without fans or heaters, people could live in a much more comfortable environment throughout the year. The rock itself did most of the work, but how could thousands of people breathe while living hundreds of feet below the surface? Ancient builders created more than 50 vertical ventilation shafts, some reaching depths of around 180 feet and passing through multiple levels of the city. Warm air produced by human activity rose naturally and escaped through these shafts. As that hot air moved upward, cooler air from the surface was drawn down to replace it. The entire underground city effectively behaved like a giant lung, circulating air without mechanical equipment. Fresh air alone was not enough. To survive underground for long periods, residents also needed a secure supply of water. Deep wells were cut through the rock to reach groundwater below, providing cool water for drinking and everyday use. These wells could be accessed and protected from within the underground complex, making them difficult for enemies above to locate or contaminate. In a hot, dry environment, protecting water was not simply convenient. It could determine whether an entire community survived. In the deserts of Tunisia, Berber communities developed a different way of building into the earth. They dug enormous circular pits, sometimes around 9 meters deep and 10 meters wide, creating a central courtyard below ground level. Bedrooms, kitchens, and other living spaces were then carved horizontally into the surrounding walls. From above, the home could look like a giant hole in the desert. Below the surface, however, it became a sheltered living space protected from direct sunlight and extreme heat. The brilliance of the design was hidden in the shape of that deep courtyard. At night, cooler, denser air could sink toward the bottom of the pit and remain there longer than it would on the exposed surface. During the day, the surrounding earth helped protect that cooler air from rapid heating. At the same time, several meters of soil above the rooms acted as a massive thermal barrier. In some conditions, the interior could remain dramatically cooler than the outside air. The Berbers had effectively turned the ground itself into a reservoir for coolness. Halfway around the world, ancestral Puebloan communities in the American Southwest also used the earth as protection from harsh desert temperatures. They built partially underground dwellings from wood, mud, and earth, allowing the surrounding soil to moderate indoor temperatures during the heat of the day. Over time, some of these pit house traditions developed into underground ceremonial rooms known as kivas. These spaces often included carefully designed ventilation systems that helped bring fresh air inside. Once again, the earth became an ally against the desert climate. The Romans approached heat with considerably more luxury. In some wealthy villas, flowing water supplied by aqueduct systems helped make living spaces more comfortable. Water could be routed through channels or pipes near architectural surfaces, allowing it to absorb heat as it moved through the building. Combined with thick walls, shaded courtyards, fountains, and careful building design, flowing water helped create cooler interior spaces. Rather than simply hiding from the sun, Roman engineers used moving water as one more way to carry heat away from where people lived. In the hot, humid forests of the Yucatan region, the challenge was not only keeping cool, but also protecting precious fresh water. The Maya constructed artificial reservoirs and developed sophisticated methods for maintaining water quality. Archaeological evidence shows that some systems used materials such as quartz, sand, and zeolite to filter contaminants from the water. Aquatic plants could also shade the surface, reducing direct sunlight and helping control conditions within the reservoir. These were more than simple storage pools. They formed carefully managed water systems designed to support entire communities. And that may be the most important lesson these ancient solutions have left behind. Today, architects are once again exploring wind towers, thick earthen walls, underground construction, shading, and water-based cooling to reduce dependence on energy-hungry air conditioning. Our ancestors had no electricity, yet they understood airflow, shade, groundwater, evaporation, and the thermal behavior of earth and stone. In an age of climate change, the answer is not always to build a more powerful machine. Sometimes the smarter solution is to understand the environment around us and learn how to work with it.